How to price cards like a pro. If I were to ask you how much a card is worth, where would you start? Depending on the card, you may go to eBay's last sold, TCG Player Marketplace data, or PriceCharting.com price overview. Whichever platform you choose, you may look at either the last sale or do a quick average calculation in your head, or look at the lowest listing. But what if I told you that you need to consider all three price values to get the most accurate price? Let me break it down into three categories I use when pricing cards to sell at the most fair and competitive price out there. First is last sold. Most people know how to look at this, but bear with me. Last sold is the most recent realized sale for the card you're researching. I put emphasis on realized because some last sold data may either be an or best offer, which isn't viewable by some standard forms, or canceled. It's up to you to do the research and verify that the last sold price was actually realized. If it is, then we're moving on to the second data point. Number 2, average 3 to 5 sales. You may not realize it, but chances are you're doing this subconsciously. Let me give you an example. When you looked at the last sale of a card, did you stop at the first value you saw? I bet my PSA 3 Ivysaur and say that you didn't. I bet you looked at a few other sales that were right behind the last one. Why? Because whether you know it or not, you're getting an idea on what the average looks like and seeing if that last sale wasn't someone desperate for cash or trying to artificially inflate the market. If you average the last 3 to 5 sales together, you'll have a good idea on the overall price, but also factor out any odd behavior from a desperate seller or market manipulation. Take note that these extremes do happen. The final data point will help verify that your calculated average is real or not. Last but not least, lowest active listing. Like any market, the same principles apply: supply and demand. Therefore, when determining what you want to list your card at, you need to consider these two variables. Since you have your last sold and 3 to 5 sales average calculated, compare those values with what the lowest active listing is. Are your numbers higher or lower? If they're higher, check the seller's reputation and amount of sales. Remember, there are multiple factors that come into play that shouldn't directly impact the overall value of a card. For example, if you notice that the lowest active listing is being sold by a person who just made an account yesterday with no sales data is listing their card 25% lower than your value, is that a number you should use? Personally, I wouldn't. This scenario would tell me that this seller simply wants to undercut all other listings to appear first in the sort by lowest price first search result. A good rule of thumb is to only consider the lowest active listing on a seller who is well established, like a large positive feedback score, or being verified, or anything else that signals to you that the seller is reputable. Okay, now you know this, so what now? Now that you have these three values calculated, you'll have a general sense on how much a card is actually worth. Sellers introduce an array of different variables that will drastically increase or decrease a card's price. Establishing the three data points will help filter out those variables to get you the true market price. In the next video, I'll teach you how I calculate all these numbers into a straightforward plan to list a card at the best price possible.